Well, the biggest change, I think, that a number of us who went through 9/11 might um, identify is really a sense of not feeling safe anymore. I think that we felt as Americans, with the borders that we have, with um, the strong military, with kind of not, not having had a war on our own soil for a very, very long time. Um, I think we felt invincible and not vulnerable in any way. And so I think the idea of getting hit on American soil, and not, in Hawaii, but here on the mainland, I think that really, affected our sense of safety.
According to a Gallup poll in 2013, 48% of Muslims say they have experienced religious discrimination at some point in their lives. Compare these numbers to 21% of Jews, 20% of Catholics, and 25% who affiliate with no religion. According to the same poll, one-third of Americans who say they do not have prejudice towards Muslims have an unfavorable view of Islam. According to the FBI criminal database, prior to the 9/11 attacks, 20 to 30 individuals of Islamic descent had hate crimes perpetrated against them. After the attacks, the numbers increased to 500. In the years following, 100 to 150. It is 5% higher than pre-9/11 numbers.
Um, Actually, right after 9/11, yes. Not right after 9/11, but pretty soon after, within, 6 months after. Yes, actually a fairly uncomfortable, frightening experience. Um, when you were little, we used to go to Madison, Indiana, which is in southern Indiana, and there was a state park there, Clifty Falls, and we would stay in the inn there. And then Madison was a quaint little town with old houses and old buildings and a kind of an old main street with some cute shops and restaurants, and a fair that happened, some kind of festival or something that happened each year. And we actually we used to go maybe twice a year down there. So we went after 9/11, and your sister was obviously very little. She was less than, a year old. Um, and for the first time, we actually didn't go on Main Street where all the tourists are, but we went off into kind of the area where more the townsfolk, the local people lived. And we were looking for a pizza place. We stopped at a local pizza place. We thought, oh, this will be nice to see what a local place is like, not where all the tourists are. And we waited. We walked in and we asked for a table. And we waited, and people came in and they were seated, and more people came in and they were seated. And we were, after maybe the fourth set of people came in and were seated, we realized that we were intentionally not being served. And I'm obviously not Caucasian American, or I am actually Caucasian if you look at the classification. That's the funny thing. But I'm obviously not European American. And it's the first time that I truly felt that I was being discriminated against. That wasn't the only thing that happened when we were hiking. There were, I think, a couple of men that were hiking at the same time, and I was instinctually uncomfortable. And there were a couple of other incidents where I felt like I was being stared at, and you were being stared at, actually, during that trip. It's the only time I've ever felt unsafe there. But I was distinctly uncomfortable during that visit. And so, was it dangerous? I don't know. We didn't go to secluded places. We finished hiking pretty quickly after we ran into those men. And, I don't know that anything would have happened, but I've never felt my skin so focused on, living here in Indiana as after that. And I don't tend to be ultra sensitive to those things. Sometimes friends will point out, "Do you feel like you were just treated differently?" And I don't, so I'm not ultra sensitive to it. So I think that really had something to do with the event that had just happened, and it was really in the forefront of people's minds.
The money was mainly spent in these three ways: towards certain congressional candidates, advertisements, and paid towards certain scholars who were paid to go do news segments on several different media outlets. People whose money went toward the political campaigns include Allen West and Newt Gingrich. Not only that, but Fox News hired some of these specialists to go on air and talk about stories like President Obama being a Muslim or Sharia law invading America. Not only were these stories completely falsified, but they seem to be part of this sort of code word culture developing in America.
Since 9/11, there's been a significant change in which the media has addressed certain individuals.
Is that a statement or a question?
Has there been?
Has there been? I think that there's a sensationalism that has been taking place, and focused in on you expect that. You'd expect that there would be some changes in perceptions, especially since we were attacked by a group that claimed jihad or a fight against everything America stood for, and what they perceived we stood for. So yes, you're going to have some shifts in how media covers it, and then there's a sensational piece that comes from that is dangerous because it's not necessarily based on facts, and it also is limiting because it's based on anecdotal and also exceptions. So based on limits of individuals instead of groups, actually. So when you put a whole group of people into a category that only a small select group of people actually fit into is very dangerous.
So one of these examples that I've come up when I was doing my research was how Fox News was putting labels on President Obama. Because of his name, they started using these words. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know if it's just Fox News. It's Fox News is the populist or the popular version of what you're asking about. But you could see, the use of Barack Hussein Obama. And they would use those type of words. Un-American. Some of the individuals that worked for that group too would use those technologies or those words. It's a conservative movement that's being used to some degree to try to frame or to scare, which is that sensational piece that's common, and it's a populist agenda that's what is an American, what is not an American. It's not very intellectual and focus. So you, instead of challenging the president's agenda or his policies, you try to frame it like using Hussein in his name, which is just ridiculous. They just want everyone to know that he has an Arabic heritage, which he does, but doesn't mean he's Muslim, and it doesn't mean he's Arabic, but that's what they're implying. So it's a small minority that is trying to stir up the populace to gain political power, and that's pretty scary. That's the issue with it, if you're looking at the sensational coverage, because obviously Fox News is great at it, just like MSNBC is really good at what they do on the other end of the spectrum.
During the Red Scare, the anti-communist or anti-Russian sentiments were promoted by the media immensely. People were afraid that their neighbor was a communist. This was not unlike what's today, where the new word is terrorist or Muslim.
So you're a history teacher, yes?
I am.
So would you say that the techniques that have been using at the moment by these, as you said, this minority, is it similar to the techniques that were used during the Cold War against the Red Scare and the communists?
I think some of the techniques are similar, but yeah, I believe we're a little bit more, because we have so many different sources and resources. It's both it's a positive thing, because now we're not only relevant. We don't have to rely on 3 news sources to get our news. So we can get to the intellectuals, the educated individuals, the people of power can fight back in their own ways, independently, from blogging to just changing the channel. It is scarier at times, because that small minority can just only watch what they want to watch and confirm that their views are like that. So that would be the similarity to the Ku Klux Klan, because you'd only hang around people that were like-minded like you. So if you want to only watch one news station that only covers the topics you think are true, it's what do you call it, a negative, positive, what do you call it, a negative positive or whatever it is, doesn't matter, but a false positive is what it's called. So it's a false positive that you end up creating, much like, hey, I've run red lights and never gotten a ticket, so I'm never going to get a ticket, so I might as well just run red lights, because it's still wrong, and you're still going to get a ticket at some point. And that's what Fox News does. It creates false positives in that group, minority, but they become so strong in their beliefs that they think everyone else believes this, and it's the only truth that is out there, and then they don't become flexible or open to change. And that's the scary part. So that's the similarity.